it's recording. You can come in and sit down first.
Yeah. Have you got enough of the table without us in it?
Yeah.
Okay, come on. Sit down. I've got there. Where's going now?
I don't know.
Why don't you just come in from the other side?
Yeah. I'm just going to turn.
Come on!
I mean, it's
bloody day!
2, 1, 2, 1, 2. There's the waveform, so that looks quite good.
Say something.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Cut.
5, 6.
Correct.
Okay. Are you running?
Rolling, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I think that one shoe is good. That's a good look.
Right.
Do we know what we're talking about
Not
then?
really, but we'll just start and see what happens.
Okay, we're thinking of making this film, yeah? And the question is...
What's the point?
What's the point? Exactly. Exactly, that is the question.
What's the point of making another?
What's the point of making another film?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think what happened...
Oh, that's interesting. You're allowed to drive on here.
What happens is...
I first met Boris a few years ago, and for work. And at that time, Boris was working on a film called Who's Driving the Dream Bus?
My dad sent me a DV tape of my birth.
And that was really a film about his own journey, I suppose it was.
That is so weird. I don't know.
There was a bunch of questions which are the kind of questions that people ask who are trying to work out what this dreaming, waking, sleeping things we call life.
As sort of a quest film about how he came to this communication that some people call non-duality.
Well, let's just have a go with it.
All right.
The weather's perking up.
Go on then.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
And how, in a way, that perhaps had made him, happy is not the right word, but had perhaps put him in a place that he felt more comfortable in than he had previously.
It's hard though, isn't it? It's a really
Well,
hard...
you know that poem I did, which is at the beginning of the Dream Bus, if I were you, who would I be?
Yes.
If I were you, would I still be me?
Yeah. Did you write that?
Yeah.
Fucking genius. Yeah, how's it go?
If I were you, who would I be? If I were you, would I still be me?
Yeah, that's
Whose
very
are
good.
they, these eyes through which I see looking back at me?
Who are they? What? Who are they?
So what we try to do is make a film that, in a way, allows me to talk to him a bit more about that. And we've gone out again and talked to one or two people who perhaps have a bit more experience of this non-dual communication and who even talk to other people about it. I don't want to call them experts because I don't think they would describe themselves as that.
I thought the food there was surprisingly good, actually, because it had a slightly unpleasant smell when we went in. I thought, yeah, it smelt a bit.
That's the best bread I've had
Sometime.
in a long time, yeah. But that tomato bread was excellent.
These stone walls are mad, they're fat. The effort that must have gone into building stone walls.
Very fat. Why do they need to be so fat?
Well, so they don't fall over.
People used to know a lot of songs, sing a lot of songs together, and we're just rubbish now. We don't remember anything. We've got phones and computers to do that.
It's a long way
to Tipperary, it's a long way to go.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about life as it really is. We're suggesting that this whole way of viewing life, of there being a separate you who's negotiating it and moving through it and relating in it, is just an appearance. It's only apparently real.
I'll just pour the tea. I'll just stop the whistling of the kettle. It may turn out I can't multitask as well as I thought. You know, we'll flagellate ourselves, we'll take drugs, we'll meditate in caves for dozens of years, we'll become ascetics and eat half a bowl of rice a day. We will do anything to solve the problem of me, other than seeing that there is no me.
In a lot of ways, that kind of shows, that's the whole game of being an individual. What's he thinking about me now? Or how is Charles perceiving me, and how is Boris perceiving me right now? There's a heaviness to that then. You know, there's kind of a going around through life kind of wondering, second guessing what people are thinking about this me character. And then when it's seen there is no fucking me character, all of that just falls away, and all that heaviness. And there is no one over there to think about me. There's just thoughts that arise. And then, you know, that can be extremely, it's really liberating, you know. That's the whole freedom of that, you know.
1 second, we just, whoa, shit. Fuck.
Oh, Boris, please.
Sorry.
Just leave that shit. Doesn't matter if it's drooping down. I'd rather stay alive.
In front of my face.
Apparently alive. I'd rather stay apparently alive. Die on the way to see Tony Parsons.
Yeah.
It's only me that wants a purpose and meaning. I was born, my life must have some meaning or purpose. For God's sake, please tell me what it is. When people come to a meeting where it pointed out that there is only what is and that there's no meaning to it, they either walk away and reject it totally, a lot of people do that, or something rings a bell.
Turning it around. Shooter's Bottom.
Shooter's Bottom.
That's an excellent name.
A bit backlit, but anyway.
It's quite funny, but altogether. Shooter's Bottom, have you paid and displayed?
I think one of the things I've always found difficult talking to Boris is that whilst I can understand his search and his apparent, it's very difficult to find the right words, and I'm sure he'll rebut me or disagree with these, but his apparent satisfaction with where he got to. I've always wondered, well, so what in a way? Where does that take you next? And how do you live your life after that realization, and what are you thinking every day, and does it change you, and are you happier, and all those kind of things.
I don't know what you call it. I've no way of knowing the right words to describe what it is to feel that you've lost, you know, to get rid of the I, if you like, that, the I-ness, the selfness.
What does it feel like?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah, I think, what does that feel like? Does that change you as a person? Does that change the way you live? Does that change the relationships you have with people?
It's like when there's an itch in your foot, what does it feel like when it's not there anymore?
Well, yeah.
That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like.
Well, that's a good analogy, I think.
Yeah.
But then what goes on? What happens next? You know, I mean.
Or it's like if you're having a big poo on the toilet.
Yeah.
Feeling of relief afterwards.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes.
As well.
That's another good analogy.
Thanks.
Not as quite as attractive.
This is getting to the nub of what I don't understand, or what I'd like to know about you. You apparently were born, or you went like this.
You were born.
You went like this. And
You went like that.
Okay, here's you here, naught. Then you're 10, and then you're 20. Somewhere between sort of 15 and 23, you're in a kind of mode, 25, maybe a bit older. You've got a kind of searching thing going on. There's some unhappiness there, that you feel that there's this hole that needs to be filled. Around about here, something happens where there's a seeing that there was never a hole and nothing needed to be filled.
Yeah, but that was
And
always
then-
seen anyway.
Yeah, but but it was seen. Okay, I'm putting it on a timeline,
but-
which I know you don't like. But let's
Yeah.
just say it was seen. But in my story of your life, you went on a search, and then it was seen, and then your life went on. Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is this bit here. Your life going on. What's going on there? Now.
Do either of you take sugar?
No, thanks.
Yes, please. One sugar.
One.
Bad idea.
Remember the Zen, the little anecdote from Zen of the monk that said, now I'm, well, I'll put it in the terms they put it in, now that I'm enlightened, I'm just as miserable as ever. I think that's a wonderful corrective to all of the colourful stories about, you know, the multiple levels of personal enlightenment and
Yeah.
the gifts that that undoubtedly brings. It's, you know, there's no gifts in this. There's no gifts, but there is the lifting of a curse.
Yeah.
This is like, you know, Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
You know, like the wicked witch
Yes.
curses us with the burden of a self.
Yeah. I'm trying to
That
get
sounds
you to
familiar.
tell me how many times a day you are thinking, I don't exist.
I don't ever think I don't exist.
Right.
I think it's impossible really to describe what it's like not to be someone to someone, because the someone that's sitting there would interpret that as an experience that they could have, and of course you can't. But the other thing about it is that when the someone collapses and there's nothing but what is, it's very ordinary.
The false self cannot collapse itself. That's the bugger. Of course, this is the totally frustrating thing about this. You know, there's nothing that the self can do to make itself disappear, because it doesn't exist.
Can you say that's when it happened?
When what happened?
Collapsing of the self. The seeing.
No.
When
There
was it
was
seen?
never any self. There's never been a self.
No, I know that. But when was it seen by you? By the person that you used to think yourself as Boris Yench?
It's always been. It's not like
you wouldn't have. Look, going to my timeline, which I know you reject anyway, but going to my timeline, when you were 10 or 15, say, you would not be having this conversation with me now.
But the story is kind of not, can be a nice story or a horror story, but it's irrelevant with regard to what we're talking about
Not for me.
because it's illusory.
Not for me.
No, all right.
And most people in the world are convinced that they are a real person. And then they live in what I call a real reality, a subject-object reality, which for them is real. When that suddenly collapses, that whole sense of being a real centre or person or identity in here, when that collapses, there's nothing, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing left. So there is no sort of centre. All there is, you could say, spaciousness, in which things appear to happen, which have no significance or meaning of any kind.
I suppose really what it's about is hope and hopelessness in a lot of ways, you know, because hope is really just rejecting what's happening. You know, it's not this, so we're hoping that it'll be something better tomorrow or later this afternoon or whatever. And a clear message is completely hopeless. And it has to be hopeless if it's going to be a clear, uncompromising message. And in the heart of that hopelessness then is the gift of seeing life as it really is, you know.
There isn't anything that isn't an appearance out of no thing. This is no thing appearing as this, and that tree that might be dying over there is no thing appearing as a tree that seems to be dying. But it's only an appearance. The difficulty for me is that it thinks it is real, I am real, so it thinks the world that it lives in is also only real. That's all it can experience. So because it thinks the world is real, therefore it thinks decay is real, therefore it thinks time is real.
So our apparent deaths are also...
Oh, nobody's born, nobody lives, and nobody dies.
And death, what's that?
Don't think anyone knows what death is. I don't think anyone's ever experienced it. I mean, the bodies die, and we, you know, it's not very pleasant, is it? It's one of the reasons we go on the search, is because we don't ever want to have to go through that shit. But there's just nothing that I know about this. It doesn't make it less scary or less unpleasant. You feel sad when someone dies and tears your life apart. If it's someone you love, you know, that's life. Could you shut up, please?
One of the things that people were looking for a long time was all about losing the eye. But, I mean, they said it was for to gain immortality, to live forever, but really it was about the dissolution of the self.
What are we talking? I'm a bit confused now. I'm lost. Who was doing that?
Well, whoever was looking for it at the time. I mean, I don't know who they were.
Well, who were they? What do you mean they were saying it was about immortality? Well, they were looking for immortality.
They took, yeah. Well, you know, that's what people want, isn't it? They either want immortality or they want death. The idea of finding immortality is sort of a release from ever having to deal with death.
If you said to most people you're going to live for 300 years, they'd think, fuck that. I'll stand it. But part of you never believes you are going to die. That's the amazing thing about human life. I don't think you can really compute it. I mean, even... You know, I watched my father die, and I think the acceptance of dying is very, very difficult to. You resist it to your last molecule. You know, that's the extraordinary thing about human beings. You know, possibly all life. Actually, that resistance to death. You know.
It is liberation. It's liberation from the tyranny of the self. This is a loss that we're talking about, just the loss of the sense that there was ever a person who had a life.
It is impersonal, it is absolutely, and what you're looking for is impersonal, because the personal is in the story of you being an individual. That's the story you're living in, is the personal story. So an uncompromising, clear communication can absolutely, it's terrifying. You know, it's the same, death is what we're talking about, really. So it's then you're afraid of death. It's the exact same thing as saying you're afraid of death, and then you see that you're not there to die. So there's all this laughter, and you know, there's nothing ever to be afraid of, like, you know. So some guy comes along and says, I don't think the earth is flat, I think the earth is round. And he gets burned at the stake for such lunacy talk, you know. And so then when it's seen that it actually is round, what's changed? Nothing's changed, like, because the earth was always round. It was artificial that the earth was flat. And it's the same with liberation. It's the same with seeing that there's only this, that there's no separate individual. Nothing changes because there has always been just this.
There's this phrase, when this is seen, we could say when non-duality is seen, when the self is seen through, all of which are hopeless phrases, but never mind that. But if that's the case, if this is seen, then it is seen that this literally is it. In other words, this is, let's say, the whole of existence. Past and future collapse. You could say space collapses, and what you're left with is whatever's arising, whatever's happening. You could say whatever phenomena are arising is the totality. If we leave it at that, that could be interpreted in various ways by various personalities. For example, a depressive personality might throw themselves out of this boat on hearing that. So I think the second bit to add is quite important, that there is a tendency, when the sense of self's collapsed, there's a tendency not just to notice that this is it, you know, these trees, these ducks, this lake is it, but there's also a tendency for that to be enough. So searching stops. I mean, essentially searching arises out of the impulse, feeling or thought that this isn't enough.
There's no sense of being, oh, I'm just millimetres away from that scene.
Really close to it.
Yeah, I'm really close to it. If I could just do something.
It was there and then it wasn't.
Then it went away. It's that there's no, you know, I understand that, you know, and I, you know, it's a, what do they call black holes? You know,
but that's
anomaly. It's a sort of, not an anomaly, but it's a kind of a thing.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know, you know, can't describe it.
No, let's not mix up what we're talking about and some kind of glimpse, Charles.
I know.
Some kind of glimpse.
Yeah, but you must have had that.
No one had that.
You must have had that.
No, I didn't have that.
Well, something, or the person not you had it.
No.
But it was seen, because what I'm saying is...
It's the total absence of anything, any particularity.
Right. Well, Tony Parsons even will accept that before I was no one, when I was still Tony Parsons, I believed in God. He says that.
I used to believe there was a God when I was Tony Parsons.
Can you remember why?
Yeah, it was sort of comfortable and frightening at the same time. It made me feel as though I was real. If God's real, I must be real.
Because what I've been trying to get from you, and you're rightly, bravely, convincingly defending yourself, defending the whole thing, is I've been trying to say that there was a time when you were Boris Jansch.
I'll take over in a minute, Chrissy. When you're back. Thanks for that.
I'm saying that...
What time is it? It's about 6 minutes to. You're saying?
That in my thing, there is a time when you were Boris Jansch, and then there was falling away of the self, and then life goes on. Then there's just life.
You would say that?
That's the way I thought it was.
What do you think? What do you call self? What do you mean by self?
What do I mean by self? What I mean by self is the sense that we have inside in our mind of being the person that we are labelled with.
No, I've never had that.
You've never thought that you were Boris?
No.
I think that may be true. You're a bit different, I think. You are quite alien.
I think it's possible.
You are quite alien.
Yeah.
In a nice way. I mean, it's not one of those things you can say, I've nearly got there, because it's not like that. You're at any time, if you don't see it, you might as well be on a different universe, or you're just millions and millions and millions of miles away from it. And I do understand how it can just kind of happen like that. And I suppose the closest my experience has been is sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you've no idea where you are. You don't know what, you've forgotten who your name is. And I think that is an experience that kind of shows you, points to you, or to your sort of the illusion of existence, or the illusion of being someone. And that is a quite powerful experience, but it's not something new for me. If that's what it's like,
then you can't live in that space because you can't function. And I think this is my big question, is how do you function knowing that you don't exist?
Yeah, this is difficult because when you put it in those terms, I would never say that liberation is the point where you don't exist anymore. I would put it around the other way. When the illusion of there being a separate identity collapses, then there isn't anything left. This is difficult for people to imagine. All that's left here is a body-mind organism which functions, but there isn't any sense of a centre that is experiencing or knowing or is aware of what is happening here. There is only what is happening here.
This hasn't worked, and this hasn't worked, and this hasn't worked. There must be something else, and then that's how, when there's a clear communication, there can be just this openness to that communication, that in actuality there is no separate you, there is only what is. And then life then can be seen as it really is, because it's not being viewed through this veil of me, and everything is just, you can't describe it, and it's paradoxically just, it's still what it is, because you've always been there, it's always been this, it's completely ordinary, but at the same time it's boundless and free and unconditional love, it's whole and complete, and you can't describe it, But that's obviously, then when that's seen then by no one, it's seen that that's what everyone is yearning for. Everyone's actually looking for their own absence.
Me is thought of as so important, but the functioning that happens after me collapses is far more harmonious and effective than it was when me was around. Because me collects mums and dads' ideas, and the way I should sit and the way I should drive and the way I should act are all collected with the me, which is continually a background nagging voice. When that's gone, there's just functioning. Nobody is doing it any longer.
Well, you do function. Functioning goes on. There's no one in there who does or doesn't function.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, okay.
There isn't one day when you don't exist and one day when you do exist. I mean, there just isn't a little person living inside you called Charles Turley, a separate person.
No, I think one of the fundamental issues maybe about this business that you might describe as awakening or enlightenment or whatever you might want to call it, the seeing of non-existence, the collapsing of self. Because that might be seen in a moment at any time, maybe that confuses me to think, well, there's a before and an after, which probably isn't the right way of viewing it, because I think Boris would say, well, there was no before and there is no after. There's just now, there's just it, there's just stuff, there's just happening. And in a way, the actual seeing is as much an illusion as it's just a sort of bollocks, really. You either see it or you don't, and when it happens, it's totally irrelevant because all there ever was this.
Whether it's my daughter looking or me looking is exactly the same. It's undiluted and it's unfiltered. It's just, whether it's looking, I don't just mean with, obviously people who are blind are looking as well, but looking in the sense of experience in all of its fullness. So it's always undiluted, whether you're pissed on beer or you're meditating on a hill.
So that's why when some people when this comes up and the conversation comes up, they're okay, so you're not separate anymore, but what about me? I'm separate or whatever. Once it's seen that there is no separation.
It's a very simple thing. There's no movement required to get there, because this is absolutely it.
Me? You. Me? You.
ironic is that the me doesn't even allow itself to know itself.
To know itself,
Yeah.
psychologically,
Yeah.
or, yeah.
I mean, if you think about how much time we spend worrying about who am I,
Mm.
I mean, that seems quite ironic.
Oh, it does, but don't forget, of course, that me can't do anything other than what it does. It has no free will or choice. It's just a puppet. Me is a puppet of the brain. And so it acts and reacts and tries to do it, but it has no choice. So it can go on asking, like in self-inquiry, who am I, who am I, who am I? And there may be a sort of false sense of detachment that comes with that focused awareness. But there isn't anyone in there that's doing that. There's just a body that's hypnotized by that process and thinks it's making progress.
Well,
Because
there's no change.
because on you say to me, oh yeah, there's no such thing as free will, and then we have a big row about it, and I say, yeah, okay, but you're still living in the waking dream where you're quite happy to be making decisions, and telling me all about them, boring me to death with cameras and lenses and school dinners and all that. The real reality may be that there is no free will, and so there is no responsibility. But that, I don't see how we can live like that. I mean, that's, I think, my problem. I don't feel that's not an easy place to operate in, and so I'm got many questions about that. You're still, in a way, responsible. There's still a responsibility. It's just maybe to be described in a different way.
What do you mean?
Well, because otherwise we get into that whole business about, so what we're saying, criminals, murderers and paedophiles are not in any way responsible, there's no...
That's the misconception, is that what we're talking about is the absolution of guilt for criminals and the... nihilism, really, just chaos, just like...
Yeah.
I'll go and smash a window and nick a TV. But that's not what we're talking about. Just because you don't exist as a separate entity with choice and free will. To say then, oh well, then I can go and do anything, do something really bad. That's presuming that you are a separate individual that can do that. I mean, who would decide to do that? If you don't have choice, how are you going to decide to go and rob a bank?
You say to me, there's no such thing as free will. Full stop. Lock, stock and barrel.
Full stop.
Full stock. Full stop. You say that. I say, yes, okay, but we live with the illusion of free will. And that for some people that's a very, very important thing, I mean, that is absolutely the heart of for some people that's at the heart of being a human being, that we have the choice to do the right thing.
But if it's an illusion, what is it that's comforting about that?
Well, not everyone thinks it is an illusion. Some people think it exists.
Now, for a lot of people, there's a sticking there. They feel that's a very uncompassionate sort of message if there's no morals or good or bad behaviour are acceptable. But they're presuming that there's someone who can act badly or goodly. That's out of the story, and it's an illusion. As far as I'm concerned, the only compassion there is that which destroys the illusion of separation and leaves only freedom.
Well, I don't believe in free will. It's just there isn't any free will.
Right. So what are you doing when you make all those decisions? Inverted commas.
Doing? Well, that's language, isn't it? I mean, we've got to talk to each other. It's
but why
in
you?
a certain way.
You've got two children.
As opposed to me saying,
you've got children.
It was decided today.
No,
that,
bollocks. I'm not interested in that shit. I'm not interested in that shit.
Semantics.
That's bollocks shit. Well, I'm trying to get to the issue here.
Yeah.
The issue is you have two children who I'm assuming are probably the most important things in your life, as you sense it.
and you are making decisions on how they're brought up.
Yes, you're calling them decisions, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what else to call them.
Yes.
Choices, decisions.
Yes.
You're making
That's what we
decisions
call them.
on choices.
Yes.
Yeah. And
so we say on Tuesday at 6 o'clock I decided to call such and such and make an appointment to see the blah blah.
I don't think that's what it's about. That doesn't get to the fundamental nature of it.
No, but that's fine.
Because that's not important. That's not important. And anyway, there's no real decision in that. That can be easily, those of, I had an itch in my arse and I thought, oh yeah, I must call
911.
Brian, yeah, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying is. What I'm saying is you've got what I'm saying is, or Jane, what I'm saying is you've got two very important people who you're charged with rearing, and you are deciding what is good for them, what is not so good for them.
You're deciding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you are. I mean, if I talk to Claire about this,
in
Claire,
a conversation,
you will
we
say,
can have a
sorry, the
conversation.
children do not have sugary drinks.
Yeah.
Or you'll get really annoyed with me because at school they're giving them drinks with sugar in them or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll bore me to death about that.
Yes.
Okay. But so between you, a decision has been made that the children will not have these drinks, or they will have these drinks. Okay. But you tell me there's no free will.
No.
So why are you getting so upset about it all?
I'm not.
What are you doing then?
Who's upset?
Well, you bore me to death.
You're the one who's crying.
You're boring me to death about the children doing this, the children not doing this. This can't happen. This is going on. Blah blah blah.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I've heard it all before. I've heard it. This and this, and
No, but
you're making decisions there, and they're not just willy nilly. They're not just not baby decisions. These are sort of things. These are lifestyle decisions on your children.
it's hard to explain what I mean, because what I mean is not something that I can sort of convey to you in a sentence that it's impossible to package this up in a way that you'll understand it. All I can say to you is that I agree. No, but I don't know anything about it.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I can't tell you about something I don't know.
No. Okay. Right.
All I can do is I can say I can agree with you that if we're talking about my life, my home life, me and Claire make decisions to do any number of things on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I can also say to you, if we're doing this non-dual film,
Yeah.
and we're talking about this thing that we find ourselves in every day, really, there aren't any moments.
Yeah.
There aren't separate moments where decisions are made.
No, well, you were saying that once it was clear to you that free will and choice was, I guess, a kind of illusion, you felt a great sense of release and relief.
Yeah. So that's not a conceptual understanding, though, that free will and choice are illusions, because you can read that in a book a million times and it won't register and it won't mean anything to you.
They're hearing the words and understanding the words. It's absolutely nothing to do with the words, really. Because if that was the case, then it could be intellectually grasped, and we could do a college course in it and get your diploma and your masters and all of that. It's nothing to do with understanding.
Well, do you ever wake up in the night and think,
different
fuck
for
it, there's
you,
no
is it?
free will anyway? Just happen. Had a
No,
car
because that
crash.
would be a philosophical point of view based on the idea that there's no free will.
Who's the devil?
This actor was the devil in this film.
Oh, right,
And
yeah.
in this film, at the beginning of it, it shows you what kind of technology the Nazis had developed during the Second World War through their interpretation of sacred knowledge and everything.
This is bullshit. This is all bullshit.
Hang on. What's it called
I don't
again?
know what you've been reading or watching. It's bollocks.
Sorry, where are we? We've been here before.
Yeah,
Somewhere
it's
around
here,
here, isn't it? I think it was left there.
There. You're going left.
Right.
No.
Yeah. We're
I
going.
tell you, that is going to bring you back to exactly where you were. Until you make a big mistake to go in the right direction, this is not going to put you back on the right road.
Well, we should start by talking about what this film is about.
Still, what's the point of it?
What's the point of the film?
Yeah. Have we done that?
Shit, I think I've gone the wrong way.
Right.
Maybe not.
So do you know where we're going?
We're going to go left.
Limerick? No.
Well, it's finding a sort of point of no thought, isn't it? Yeah.
During his searching phase, if I can put it like that, Boris tells a story of how he had an experience where, for no apparent reason, he suddenly felt not there. He can probably describe it better himself, but that's something that happened to him that he kind of has tucked away, I think, in the back of his mind, and doesn't necessarily hold a great deal of store about it. I think he just says that happened and it was fairly incredible, I don't know why, and doesn't perhaps really mean much. Sometimes I feel with Boris he's not covering things up, but not always acknowledging their significance.
You know, on the beach you had that, you were telling me about that time when you had that Reiki session.
Oh, yeah, my mid-20s. I did Reiki 1.
And you had that kind of out-of-body experience. Was it an out-of-body experience?
No. At the end of the day, after, you know, hanging out with the teacher and being attuned and learning the technique, we were allowed to give each other a Reiki session. You take it in turns, you lie down, then the other person lies down.
You had that sort of bliss out?
No.
Oh.
And I had my hands over this woman, and in what was a sort of a split, it was, you know, a timeless moment. It was just a flash. And in that flash of nothing, there was everything. There was just totally indescribable.
And then years later talking about it, that somehow that reconnects with some emotion, which you don't put any value on, I understand that.
No, because there wasn't any emotion at the time. I just went,
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
Good one. Okay.
I haven't finished yet. It's like the shortest measurement of time possible. It couldn't be. It couldn't be any. It wasn't any longer than that. It was just. It was just this. It was just like, you know. Boris disappeared, and there was just everything. But it was just everything. It wasn't everything as opposed to nothing and everything. It was just everything. It was just awesome. And then immediately I came back in. And there was a sort of sense for a while of I wonder what that was. How do I describe that? How do I get that back? And I forgot about it for years. I didn't really think about it again. Continued on my search, looking for sort of any kind of proof that we survived death, or some kind of inner peace, you know.
What does that mean? Why are we going to put that in the film? Apart from the
it's a bit of
being
drama,
quite
isn't
drama.
it?
Yeah.
It's not a significant thing. I don't know why I just explained it. It was totally ordinary in a way, but
And I wasn't there. You know, I suppose the significant point about that Reiki story is that in that timeless moment, I wasn't there. There wasn't this little personality in there. There was just nothing and everything. You know, it was just.
But that can be anything. I mean, it could be anything. That could just be some kind of brain glitch. It could be anything, couldn't it?
Do you know what?
It could be a bubble of oxygen in your brain. It could be anything.
Yeah, but do you know what? I mean, is this a brain glitch? It's so. I find that kind of language so strange because it's sort of in the. You know, it's.
Well, see, I've had brain. I have sometimes had brain freezes. Where you can't think of where you are.
I'm not talking about. That's nothing to do. That's got no relevance whatsoever to what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not saying it has.
This isn't a state of confusion I'm talking about.
No.
Or a state of absent-mindedness.
Okay, so
this is
euphoric.
a totality
of everything.
Yeah,
wow.
It's so fucking big. The whole universe explodes, and is you just everything.
Wow.
But it's not like, oh, brilliant colours and sounds and everything else. Oh, isn't this beautiful? It's like, no, there's just no one.
Yeah.
It's just. I did have a thought about what you were just talking about. What were you just talking about again?
The brain.
Yeah.
It's just sort of
I'd hear many people talking about different experiences and maybe struggle to put language on it, but because they wouldn't be religious or spiritual, they wouldn't put any of that language on it. But it's clear to me that that's they've actually just dropped away. Do you know what I mean?
You'll be doing the washing up, or washing up will be happening, will be being done. And then there'll be a thought, I'm doing the washing up.
Yeah.
But that thought comes after. It's a report on what's happening. You're not actually doing anything. There isn't a separation in that way. There are thoughts which come up which report on what's happening.
Yeah.
There is no you, so it's nothing to do with anything you perceive that you've done or not done there.
Yeah, because there's the idea that it's this and not that. So it's special in some way.
It's special. To the mind, it's very special. Absolutely, yeah. It has to be some special kind of intangible, special thing that's difficult to achieve, difficult to get to. So that just always keeps it around the next corner, and eventually I might get there. Which is a brilliant way of just rejecting what is, which is already unconditional love.
I do think that most of the communication has become perverted in that it has been perverted into yet another story of path and practice and a goal to be reached, and a goal which can be reached by a person through sincerity, effort, honesty, integrity, self-contemplation, the endless da.
And that's all bollocks.
Well, you said that, I didn't.
I didn't have an awakening. I didn't have nothing happen to me. Because an awakening is you falling away and not being there. It's ridiculously ordinary, like. Do you know what I mean? It's just having a cup of tea, and in fact it's so unremarkable because it's really just a seeing that you were all, it's just this, it always was this. There is only liberation, there is only that, you know.
At the very deepest part of the mystery that we're all trying to share together, you have to say that there's nothing happening at all. This is the infinite appearing as something that seems to be happening. This thing's sitting here and talking in what seems to be time, but the actual reality is that there's nothing happening at all. This is no thing happening, therefore this no thing happening couldn't have any purpose because it's not going anywhere and it hasn't come from anywhere. It is immediately what is and what is not, which is indescribable and unknowable.
Everything arising out of nothing, but nothing being everything. So they're not two things. It's just like sound coming out of silence and then disappearing into silence again, like that.
Yeah.
So there is silence, and then there's blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
and then there's silence.
Yeah. Well, it's poetic and nothing else.
Yeah.
Now, I'll take a little pause there. How was any of that?
Great so far. Yeah, good.
When you listen to Tony, Kenneth, Richard, are you agreeing with what they're saying, or is it just stuff?
What does agreeing mean again?
Do you recognise the way you accept things to be similar or the same as to what it appears that they're saying? I'm getting the language
now. I think it sounds to me like the same thing is being spoken about by certain characters that we've chosen to film. Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
What? That they are. What? What do you mean? How does it make me feel?
Oh, well, I think you understand what that means.
Keep it in the style.
Not really. How does it make me feel that what? That they are what? That they're saying what they're saying?
What is being spoken of is the same as what you feel, think, accept.
Oh, that. How does it make me feel? No, there are moments when you talk about this that are very funny because it is a big joke in a way. So I could only say, like, during specific moments, it can be very enjoyable to listen to someone speaking about this with clarity, you know.
Connect.
Because it's not understanding, because it's not the mind working something out.
Yeah.
It's just instant, you know, it's just like...
Yeah, well,
not in like I've memorised these phrases from Osho or from Ramana Maharshi or from Jung, or, you know, and that's a clever sentence and I understand what that means. It's that it's always just pointing, and you see that in his course, and it just resonates. Like it's just.
You see, that's interesting. You use those names because I have none of those names in my.
Well, Jung, you know who Jung is.
Yes, I do. I don't know a great deal about what he said, though.
Me neither.
It's like you don't know in this. It's like what? Right now, you don't know anything. You don't know anything about this right now, this second, right now. Not that second a second ago, or a millisecond ago. Right now, this. No. You don't know anything about this. You don't. You can't think about it because it's now. When you think about it, that's gone. That's that's a thinking happening. But I'm talking about now. I'm talking about this. There is you don't know anything about it. There's no knowledge, there's no knowing of this. It's totally unknowable. It's like...
We talked to Richard Sylvester, and Richard talks about after the collapse of self, all there is possibly something he calls unconditional love. Now, I don't know whether it's not a question of whether I agree or not with that, but I think it is an interesting...
That's not what he means, though.
Well, I think we have to leave... he explains it in his own words, so we can listen, we can hear what he actually says.
We live in a time where, in two significant ways, the findings of modern Western science are confirming the pronouncements of mystics through the ages. You know, the first, of course, was the developments in particle physics. Yes, there are no objects, there's only energy. And now in the 21st century, we have neuroscientists saying what mystics have said throughout history, pretending there is such a thing as history, which is there is no self, there's no ego, there's no possibility of there being a central, deciding, decision-making, responsible core in here, which is interesting. However, there is a however, if I usually throw in about this, I would say there is one aspect of what I talk about which I suspect very strongly neuroscience will never have anything to say about, which is that in the collapse of this, in the collapse of the sense that there is a organising central self here, it may be seen, it can be seen, and it often is seen, that the nature of this is unconditional love. Now, I don't think neuroscience has ever made an interesting pronouncement about that, and I doubt whether it ever will.
If you ask me to define unconditional love, I'd find it very difficult, other than to say it's what I have for my daughter. You know, that's about all I could say.
Yeah, that's a bad definition. I mean,
Why?
Because it's personal.
No, look,
love is not personal. Real unconditional love is not personal. It's
when
just...
I give you a word definition, I'm not just cooking it up, okay? I'm thinking pretty much that's what you'd find in a dictionary.
Okay, but I'm not interested in dictionaries.
I should be interested.
I'm not undermining your love for your daughter, because I have the same for mine.
When we experience love, we experience personal love, which comes from somewhere and goes somewhere, as you say. It's a good way of putting it. Unconditional love is impersonal. The mind will always look for conditions, and it will decide whether something is love or not love, or lovable or not lovable, or worthy of love or not worthy of love, on the basis of some condition. So the very idea of unconditional love is so far beyond how the mind works that the mind simply can't grasp it.
What I'm trying to say to you here is that if you're going to use language, and we've already accepted many times in these conversations that language is feeble and incapable of often describing what we're trying to say. If we are using it, then I think you have to stick with the traditional definitions of the words you're using.
That's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous,
because these terms that you're talking, these words that we're talking about,
they have meaning, and they have a penumbra of meaning, and then outside that, they don't have any meaning.
I mean, somebody once challenged me in a talk. They said, "What about a parent's love for its child? Isn't that unconditional?" And before I could come up with an answer, somebody in the audience came up with a much better answer than I could possibly come up anyway. They just shouted out, "No, of course it's not. It's conditional on them being their child."
That's the thing is that...
Position this camera so that it's just on Kenneth, as opposed to seeing us.
Well, I think you should shoot a bit like this just so we see.
Yeah, all right. We can change the angle later.
I just prefer if it's all about me, guys, really, to be honest.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Can we maybe do a monologue? There is only wholeness. There is only life. You are already what you seek. This sense of being a separate individual is only something that's an artificial program that's running, which obviously that feels separate and energetically separate will find extremely frustrating. It's like, hey, I'm over here. You know, why aren't you acknowledging me? Do you know? But that's true compassion. That's unconditional love.
Yeah.
Unconditional love is to see you as you are, which is everything and nothing, which is whole and complete or whatever. These are all words. Words are just words. It doesn't matter. You can't say it, but they're pointing at it, you know?
You know, in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade,
Yeah.
they are looking for. They've unravelled the mysteries of the sacred texts. You know, the Dead Sea Scrolls are pointed towards a certain place in Jordan.
Yeah.
And they go there, and they've found what seems to be the Holy Grail. That's coming off the back of thousands of years of looking for this thing called the Holy Grail, and there is a history to it. And the Nazis were looking for it famously in the Second World War.
Well, what were they?
Well, they were. That's common knowledge.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Have you not seen Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I have, but Boris, here's a thought. I do not base my history on really anything much on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
If you have come to a point where, as I think Tony Parsons or Richard Sylvester or others would say, the sense of I or me just falls away and collapses. If you've had that experience, or that you've seen that, what happens next, and how do you go on with your life? And that, I think, is at the heart of my questions in this film. And it'll be interesting to see whether I get any further in resolving that, or any further satisfaction, or whether anyone can, you know, maybe there is no answer to that. Maybe that's not answerable. Maybe that is unknowable.
You know, self-awareness, if you like, the awareness of myself as a self develops maybe in the first, after about 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, and that's when separation tends to take place.
But I mean, do you have any thoughts on why that happens to us? I mean, you know, in a way, we kind of know that, but what's the purpose of self-consciousness?
What's the purpose? The trouble is, I'm going to answer any question about purpose of any kind this afternoon in the same way. The problem is, you know, as soon as we ask a why question, why does that happen? We are inviting a story. The only way we can answer that is with a story. And all of us, this great crowd of people sitting here in this enormous rowing boat, we all know what kind of categories these stories break down into. There are the religious stories. Why does that happen? So we can please God. There are the spiritual stories. Why does this happen? It's so that we can evolve and become personally enlightened until our Sahasrara chakra opens. There are the scientific and the neuroscientific stories. It happens because consciousness is an epiphenomenon of complexity in brains. The evolutionary stories, which I have to say appeal to me a great deal, but are nevertheless still stories. Or again, it's that old monkey mind coming in again, wanting to ask the obvious question why, but it can only do it by making up a story. And I think the thing to notice about these and any story is that ultimately the honest answer to these questions of why is it's unknowable.
When you talk to me like this, do you ever feel a need that I wish
To slap you?
Yeah, but I wish the guy could just fucking accept it and shut up.
No, because I've never met anyone who can accept it.
Or do you feel that I'd be a lot happier if I could just get that fucking idea in my head?
No. No, because who's happy?
Yeah, this isn't happy. It isn't anything. It's just something that's happening. It isn't happy. It's not unhappy. It's just that there is what's happening. We're getting to the stage again where I can't describe it.
Well, let's change the subject a bit. ask you the question, are we selling anything in this film?
Selling the film? Not selling, nothing for sale, as in, not in terms of ideas. I don't think there's anything for sale in this film.
So it's a sort of a con trick, really, we're doing?
No, I think some of the ideas that arise out of talking about this thing called life are quite funny. So hopefully people will enjoy it. And what more do you want when you're watching a film? On the other hand, some of the ideas that are being expressed might resonate with people that are watching this, and then there'll be a sense of relief that comes with that. That's not something that someone's doing, that sense of relief. It's just something that's, you know, it's like resonating with what's being said and it feeling good, like, because what we're talking about is a massive relief, really. It can feel, you know, like a huge relief when it's finally seen that it's just this, like, thank fuck for that. I mean, I don't need to do anything anymore relating to finding answers, becoming a better person, or finding inner peace, or...
I do find this a sort of rather glib, self-satisfied, well, you know, this is it, and this is it. And I sometimes feel if I hear anyone else say, this is it, waving their arms around and looking about as though it was fucking obvious, I find that pisses me off on occasion, because I think, well, that really doesn't help me at all. You've got to do better than that.
As he just said, it's stupidly simple. It's just this.
Yeah. That's correct.
And but it also appears that what other people call Boris Yanch, and you kind of have to live with every day, resists that all the time.
What? I live with Boris Yanch.
Partly you do.
Well, I live with people who think that this is Boris Yanch. Yeah.
You said recently, we don't feel like we keep having these conversations, but we don't feel like you don't feel like we're getting anywhere with them.
No, but that's. I think I get frustrated because I never feel I'm being answered.
Is that because it's hard?
Is what hard?
This.
Is this hard to understand?
Because it's hard. I don't
Is what
apply
hard?
any further adjectives to it.
No, but it is hard.
It is hard. Is it because
This
it
subject.
is hard? Well, whatever you answer. Is it hard?
Is it hard suggesting that it requires effort?
Is it hard suggesting it's difficult?
Yes, so same thing. Difficult for who?
Well, we've been talking about it's a niche operation.
Yes, but ultimately what it boils down to is just this. So this isn't difficult. It's as simple as it gets. It's stupidly simple.
What's the resistance then?
Well, how can this be enough? How can this be everything that you've ever wanted?
Well, the mind will always find ways of fighting this, of complicating it, of fucking it up, let's say. It's kind of like, it's almost like that is, I was going to say the function of the mind, it's almost the duty of the mind, really, to think of some way of buggering up the possibility of seeing that this is it and this is sufficient.
This town seems to be full of nothing but hairdressers.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's it.
Saying that this is it is kind of the beginning and the end of it in some ways. You know what I mean? There's actually nothing more to say, but as you were saying, Boris, the question then, the answer comes up when another question comes up.
Yeah.
You could literally sit down with someone and say, you do know that this is just this. And a light bulb will go off and go, geez, it is really, isn't it? It's just this, like.
But what is it about the sort of non-duality thing that is better than that?
There's nothing better or worse. And what you just said, it reminds me of that wonderful quote from James Watson. You might think I'm a pretty sad guy because I don't believe in meaning and purpose, but I'm going to have a very good lunch.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with right and wrong or correct or incorrect. This message can only come out of nothing. All the time there's a self-consciousness there, or somebody with a knowledge that they're holding and reconstructing and then delivering. They're speaking within the story of me.
It doesn't have better things like meditation and doing an on the top of the hill is no better than sneezing and doing a little poo in your pants by accident. You know, neither of one's preferable to the other.
French bloody.
Yeah, one's preferable as an experience, but what we're talking about is not a hierarchy.
You are only life, which is everything and nothing. It's life and death. That's all there is. It's boundless, it's free, it's indescribable, it's unknowable, it's immediate, it's, you know, it's so immediately just this.
We may be able to inject ourselves with something or take a pill that, you know, that gives us a completely different sense of who we are.
Yes,
you know,
but you are not. That's the whole point. Just because you're feeling happy or sad or have taken a pill which makes you feel like a superhero,
yeah.
there still isn't Charles who has now become a superhero. There's just being a superhero.
That's a scary, scary bloody idea. Well, maybe it is scary. As I say, I'm basically saying we're in that already. So I don't know why I'm so bloody scared about it. Because it is just as though it's just as though I've taken a pill when I was 18 months old, and it was called the Charles pill. And that's what sort of programmed my story about myself.
There is only absolute relativity. There is only formless form. There is only empty fullness. They're both the same thing. There's nothing apart. That's huge. That's huge.
Is that astrophysics or something?
Oh God, no, it's not anything. It's just nothing describing itself. It's no thing describing itself.
I'm saying these words with absolutely no conviction behind them whatsoever, because they're just kind of words, and I have no idea what they mean, to be honest.
It's a good place to start, not knowing. I mean, this whole film really is about not knowing.
Yeah.
It's already, you know, there.
It's going to be a fucking boring
just
film, isn't it?
Going to be boring.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to use the word foolish.
That's huge.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's just have a think about it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is freaking weird. And quite weird.
Well, there's just energy.
Yeah. Yeah, but what is energy?
I don't know. How should I know?
How many of those have you got?
Or 5, I think.
And you live happily ever after in the afterlife. Left? Yes, but telling someone that is pointless in a way, because Nearly swallowed my scarf.
What are people going to be watching there? What are they going to be thinking?
I've no idea.
But I think the interesting thing is after that, who is driving the dream bus back? Where does the dream bus go? Where's the next stop? Is it everything and nothing at that moment?
This?
I've heard people say that.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
I don't really know what it means. I know I could have a
Google
stab
it.
at it, but I can't be asked right now.
Yeah.
In the same boat, on the same bus. No, I sort of, you know... Anyway, I've had enough of this now.
Thanks for coming.
Having a pee.